my friends. With all the videos I've created for this channel, I've not yet talked much about my ET contact and otherworldly experiences. This is because when those contacts began, I was still teaching, and my husband and I were living what would be seen as a fairly normal life, and I didn't want to rock the boat. However, now after having recorded a combination of over 70 videos on my channels, revealing the majority of my mysterious life, I felt there might be an interest in learning more about these events and communications that begun all those years ago and continue. So I contemplated which of those experiences you might be most interested in, and I decided I would start there. So first, as I've mentioned previously, some of these events that have come into my life have been more than a little bit unusual, to say the least. So for any of you that just can't quite go there, you have my permission to see it all as fictional. Nevertheless, the main reason I felt it was finally time to tell my story is because I have now seen way more bizarre reports than my own on YouTube, and have found the majority of these to be true. For example, Alex Collier's visits aboard an Andromedan starship that began when he was 8 years old. And at one point, as an adult, he stayed aboard for, I think it was over a month. Or Garnet Schulhauser's astral travels with Albert, his spirit guide, traveling to other worlds and interacting with extraterrestrial beings, as well as many visits to the spirit side, always bringing back with him important knowledge for the future of humanity. There are also many reports surfacing now of humans who have spent time on other worlds, sometimes hours, sometimes years, even having children with these other star beings. Or the astounding story of a man called Michel Demarquet, who was abducted by beautiful and kind 8-foot extraterrestrial beings and was taken to their world called Theoba, where he remained for 9 days. They taught him the meaning of life and gave him information about human history and the future of Earth. So I really don't think overall you will find my story all that strange. Many years ago, I came in telepathic contact with an ET ship residing high above our planet. I was told by these beings that the mission of those on board is to be of assistance to the humans of Earth during these transitional years of turmoil and war. The beautiful beings aboard the starship Cialia, which I'm told means bluebird here on Earth, are great masters who, when asked, are willing to share their knowledge and wisdom with those ready and willing to hear their message. The ship is from the Andromeda Galaxy and has been stationed above our world since before recorded history. I was told that I, too, am from this island universe, as are most others who communicate with these beings. Yet, throughout the ensuing years, I've learned that as a star traveler, I have incarnated as both Andromedan and Arcturian, as well as other star races, and retained some of those memories. This is because my role is much the same in nearly any incarnation, bringing information of other star cultures and civilizations into one that's on the brink of an awakening, helping to lift the veil and restore memories through language and writing, both verbal and telepathic. While describing the seeding of star beings onto planet Earth, the Andromedans explained that some will be born as humans, and others will come into life as a human through the walk-in process. And we've discussed this many times on this channel. For review, this is where, at a predetermined time in the life of a human, and with the full agreement of both souls, another extraterrestrial soul walks into a physical body and takes over that life. These beings were contracted to come in later as necessary to perform their individual roles in the planet's development. And whether chosen to be born as a baby or come in later as a walk-in, all preparations are made before incarnation, and the spirit is fully aware of the role she or he is destined to play in the planet's awakening. These souls have lived many lifetimes, and in their normal state of existence, live as fully conscious beings. After an agreement has been reached, the soul inhabits the body, either of the infant or the adult, especially chosen for this journey. And, whether coming into human life as a child or later in life, the soul will live a somewhat normal life as a human until a predetermined date when the memory returns and the star being regains full consciousness. However, for the child born on Earth, this particular choice holds a distinct challenge because the soul coming into the body is quite advanced in consciousness. So the child's earthly experience can be bewildering and painful. That bleed-through memory of home causes the child to become confused about who they are. They may begin to show signs of depression or may become disoriented when these memories seep through. And they often develop an intense yearning to go home without knowing where or what that really might be. This is why most ET souls choose to come into a human body later in life. My early life was filled with these intense cravings for some unknown place or person. I grew up certain that I'd been adopted and convinced I was on the wrong planet. I truly believed I'd been kidnapped and forced to sort of assume a false identity and set of circumstances, even though those circumstances were quite wonderful. I loved my parents and my home and my life in general. I was loved and cared for and had many freedoms and joys. Regardless, throughout my years in this body, most have been spent looking for others like myself and hungering for even a slight recognition of home. So anyway, my first contact from the ship Cialia came several years after my near-death experience. I was lying in bed, sleepless as usual, when my body began to tremble slightly. Within moments, I became lightheaded, and I could hear a hollow hissing or buzzing around my head. My throat began to throb and pulsate, and the shaking sensations increased until I felt I was raising up off the bed. My eyes were shut, and yet I could see a bright golden light behind my closed lids. Within seconds, a strange, and wonderful sense of peace came over me. And I lay there wondering why I wasn't afraid or concerned. Then I heard the voice, as clear and pure as if someone was standing beside my bed. But the only words I heard were my name being repeated several times. But it was very loving and comforting. And oddly, very familiar, yet different than the voice I heard during my NDE. Well, I don't know how long I lay there in this state of bliss. I must have fallen asleep at some point, and when I woke up the next morning, I actually tried to talk myself out of this crazy incident by deciding it was just a lucid dream. But when it happened again the next night, I knew it had been an actual event and not a dream or a fantasy. These odd body sensations, the vibration, the floating sensation, and then the voice, over the next year or so, became a fairly commonplace event. It was always the same and always came at a moment when my consciousness was hovering between awake and asleep. Well, as time passed, I came to trust the beings behind the voices, and really began to anticipate the visits and even look forward to them. I experimented by asking questions, and in return received amazing knowledge. Soon I found that I could even call these entities to me. And after, I think it was several months, I was able to contact these beings during the day, so I wouldn't have to wait for a night visit. However, this didn't always work out too well, and there were a few visits that came at very inconvenient times, so I returned to the night visits. One night, my instructions were to spend the next 3 nights in the family room instead of the bedroom. Well, the upper half of the house is a combination family room kitchen and can be completely closed off from the lower half of the house. Well, this particular night, I wasn't sure what to expect, only that I had been told to wait for a communication in this section of the house, so I wouldn't disturb my husband, who was asleep in the lower bedroom. I was so psyched about what might happen that I really wasn't sure what to do, so I just waited. I finally got so tired, I fell asleep. Suddenly, I was awakened feeling really sick. like I was going to vomit. But almost immediately, the wave of nausea passed, and I lay there wondering why I was here doing something so ridiculous. And just about the time I talked myself into getting up, I heard what sounded like a tinkling bell. I opened my eyes, and in front of me was a beautiful, alien-looking woman. Her body was a translucent bluish color, sort of semi-transparent. She was the loveliest being I had ever seen, and emanated a serenity that was absolutely captivating. Her body was much taller than my own and very slim, with long arms that hung well below her knees. Her hands and fingers were much longer and thinner than human hands. And she was bald, with a long, narrow head and huge, very pale, aqua-colored eyes. Beautiful, the color of a tropical ocean, and a tiny, thin nose. Her mouth didn't move when she spoke, but possessed a look of tenderness, almost like a slight smile. She appeared very fragile and moved like a dancer, slow and graceful. The gown she wore looked as if it, well, to me anyway, like it was made of cobwebs. I mean, it was almost transparent. She reminded me somewhat of an elegant insect, not in a repulsive way. It's just that I wouldn't have been surprised to see her fly away. You know, just being with her made me feel relaxed and calm. In fact, oddly, something in her nature raised my own perception of self. As if I had only now, this moment, encountered my true character. In her presence, I felt masterful, as if I could do anything. Without speaking words, she knew me deeply and more intimately than I knew myself. In some way, she reflected my own authentic spirit, that vital essence, an all-knowing spark of intelligence and love. I was overcome with, well, what I can only call a deep awareness of my own sacredness. It was much later that I found that she was an aspect of myself, what you might call a future or more advanced expression of self. The alien woman began moving her arms in a dance-like movement, gracefully weaving and swaying her willowy physique back and forth. The movements reminded me of waves on a beach. My body felt lighter and lighter until I was sure I was floating. My eyes remained glued to her, as if I couldn't look away. I was completely mesmerized by the beauty of her hypnotic, rhythmic movements. As she moved closer and closer, I kind of stammered out, "Who are you?" She reached one arm out toward me and gently placed one finger on my forehead. And I could hear the words inside my mind. "You may call me Aura." Well, Aura explained that what I was seeing and feeling was a holographic projection from the ship above. And she was not really here with me, but her image was directed from the craft. I remember saying, "But I felt your touch." Then I could sense that she was kind of amused by what I had said, and I heard her response in my head saying, "You felt my touch because you expected to. You believed you would." Aura told me that she and her people were from the Andromedan galaxy and were now 12th density beings who could inhabit the physical realm as well as the higher invisible realms, as desired. However, long ago in their evolution, their race had experienced an era much like what the Earth is going through now, lacking moral structure and fighting amongst each other, until they ended up destroying their planet. Luckily, before the destruction, they were able to escape in their starships. Now, since that original timeline, the Andromedans have evolved into a very peaceful, yet somewhat cerebral and logical race of benevolent beings. And over that time, they've become a nomadic race with no planet. And they live their lifetimes of over 500 years or more aboard their ships. These great biosphere ships are like huge cities with forests and lakes and park-like meadows, with several thousand individuals on board. Aura said her race has been stationed above the earth, helping to guide humanity for thousands of years. One of the most influential Andromedans was the god Shiva. That's why he's represented with blue skin. She said that the reason her skin is lighter with only a hint of blue is because she's chosen to live most of her experience, her existence, in the higher realms where there's no longer any need to eat food. Aura informed me that she would be taking me on many journeys. The first would be to show Earth's potential future if humanity is left to continue as it is at present. Now, this was back in the early 2000s. Then she would reveal how the planet would be affected by the presence of those humans and star beings emanating a higher frequency than the collective. She told me she would be demonstrating this through a portal that she called the hallway, in which she would relate various scenarios that would illustrate what she called the climb through densities from the corruption of the lower kingdoms to the glories of the heavenly realms. Over the months, Aura made many of these visits, and each time she would teach me or take me somewhere amazing. Now, I'll do my best to explain how this all came about. Each time was the same. She would wake me up at night and have me move up into the family room and ask me to shut the door and sit on my meditation cushion. She would have me close my eyes, and with her soft voice in my head, she would guide me to this portal until I could see a long hallway with doors on either side. And each door was different, with unique colors, some with carvings or letters or symbols. Others with only a curtain or an animal skin to cover the opening. Well, she would guide me to a door and have me describe it to her to make sure that I was really there. Then, when she was satisfied with what she heard from me, if there was a doorknob, she would have me turn it and open the door. The contents of the rooms were different every time. In fact, many times would not even be a room, but would lead into an open field or a beautiful crystal city or a long winding staircase that disappeared into a ceiling of blue sky or mist. And this is also how she would take me aboard the Cialia mothership, where different times I was able to meet several of the crew. Now remember, during these travels, I'm in my astral body or light body, not my physical body. During the many visits with Aura, I learned more about her race, and that they, along with the Arcturians, consider themselves custodians of Earth, managing and guiding mankind's evolution, overseeing all aspects of operation and function. When I asked Aura why this was necessary, she replied, to keep humanity from blowing themselves up. Well, I discovered over time that although Aura was very loving and kind, she was also quite resolute in getting the point across to me. Yet, without teaching me or injecting her own insights or opinions, it was like every deduction or conclusion was entirely up to me. She showed me scenes and episodes from, well, not only Earth, but other locations throughout the galaxy that were obviously meant to elicit a reaction from me. But she would not prompt my emotions one way or the other. She made it clear that she was my guide, not my instructor. Aura said that there had been times over Earth's history when it was felt by these custodians that the human race was becoming corrupt and had gone too far and were on a path of de-evolution. And they felt it had become necessary to cleanse the planet and reset humanity. She said that they are once again at a point of decision, whether to allow mankind's continuing misconduct or to intervene, and that the next few years would tell the tale, so to speak. Now, more than 20 years have passed since she first delivered that warning. I've continued to spend time with Aura over these many years, and there's always within every visit a thread of caution for the potential future of Earth. One time, nearly 20 years ago now, I asked Aura if it was my place to alert others to these possibilities. And, she never really gave me a straight answer. She would always make the point that each individual is responsible for their own choices and therefore their course of action. She would also stress that everything is obvious to anyone with any awareness or discernment. Yet, what I found most interesting was she never gave an obvious indication where we are as a collective. With each journey she took me on, she let me decide for myself what I got out of it and what this might mean to me or to the planet. As I was thinking the other day about what might be the most meaningful topic to put on my channel, I felt it might finally be the right time to disclose some of these otherworldly encounters and let you decide for yourself if they have any value or significance to your own journey. Because it feels to me like time is whizzing by, and if there's a chance that some of this information might be helpful to even one person, it might be worth making it available to all. So stay tuned for part 2, which will be my tour of the afterlife with Aura as my guide. See you then. Bye-bye.